hate. That's right. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you, there's no vaccine that can cure this. That's right. However, we can cure this. That's right.
今天是3月28号，我们是在这个我们现在是在纽约华盛顿的赫尔蒙麦克尼尔公园，为大家公园给大家做现场直播的报道。这里是一个你好，这里是一个就是一个反对仇恨亚裔的一个集会啊。
There is only one race, my friends. It's called the human race. So when any individual comes for our Asian brothers and sisters, we have to respond. I'm an ally. I remember last year, there was so much pain, and I talked about this Friday, with the deaths of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And it was the Asian community that marched with us and said Black Lives Matter.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Asian lives matter too.
That's right.
So I'm here as an ally to let you know that we stand with you, that in the front on you, that we are one Queens. That's what makes Queens great, our diversity. 200 languages spoken here. Over 190 countries represented. I've been to Taiwan, by the way. John Liu didn't bring me though. But John Liu was at my wedding. And I'm still married, so thank you, John. Thank you for that advice. But the point I'm making is we have to stand together as a borough. It is totally unacceptable what we're seeing. And I think with that little baby, the little sign the baby had, spelled it all out. She agrees with me. We are all Americans. So God bless you. This is what it's about. It's about her. It's about making sure that her future is brighter. That she can tell a good politician with the baby. It's about her being able to walk down the street with the dream, whatever dream she wants to dream. And being able to walk down the street and be who she is, free of being attacked. And this is why we're here. We're here for you, baby. So, we're here. Stop the hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Queens Borough President Donovan Richards. So the next guest speaker we have needs no introduction to College Point. He's a friend to College Point. Whenever we're in need, he comes to our aid. He shows up every time, takes our calls. Poor AK, that's all I could say. But without further ado, Senator John Liu.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm always here in College Point. Invitation or not, I'm here. But I'm so gratified. So gratified to see all of you out here. It has been a difficult year. We're all going through this pandemic, lockdowns, businesses closed, fully or partially, people losing their jobs, and too many families having lost loved ones. It's been a rough year. And for the Asian American community, it's been,
对咱们州参议
as was
员
mentioned already, a year
刘
that
成
has
义
had a
张刘
secondary virus, that of hate and bigotry. And people have been afraid, frankly afraid to go out. Whether it be to ride the subways to school, because we have seen Asian Americans slashed in their faces, to going to the grocery store, to even walking kids to school whenever the schools are actually open. It's been a year of gestures, offensive gestures, just downright silly and stupid comments, people being pushed violently from behind, having to go to the hospital, and of course, with the horrific killing spree last Tuesday in Atlanta. It has been a painful year, and it's got to stop.
Enough! 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 Enough!
It just has to stop. Enough is enough. And it stops when government, those of us in government, we have to take the responsibility to ensure that community organizations serve the Asian American community as well as every other community. It stops when authorities understand the difficulty that we've been through and not say or make ridiculous decisions such as what we saw in Atlanta, when the sheriff gets up and somehow excuses this guy who just shot 8 people to death.
Enough.
By saying that, oh, he had a bad day. Or even the FBI, which to this day still refuses to call that killing spree a hate crime. The guy drove his car to an Asian business, went inside, shot Asians dead, went to a second Asian business to look for more Asian workers to shoot dead, which he did, and then yet a third Asian business to shoot more Asians dead. And that's not a hate crime. I don't know what is in their head. I say that because as bad as killing 8 people was, and it truly is horrific, what the FBI and the sheriff's office statements mean is that it almost puts a bullseye on Asian Americans all across the country, because you know what? It's okay to kill or attack Asian Americans because you're not going to face the full consequences. That's the kind of the terrible message that those authorities down in Atlanta have rendered. So we're here to say no more hate.
Enough!
And we're here to say that those in authority, they need to also step up to protect everybody in this community. As bad as things have been, I am really heartened to see. I don't have enough fingers and toes to count the number of rallies I've been to in the last 2 weeks. But the fact that these rallies have taken place, I had one in Bay Terrace just the other day. Residents having. These are rallies that are being organized, many of them organized by people who happen to be Asian. Jennifer actually is Asian. Okay? She actually is Asian. But the reality is that there are against anti-Asian hate, against all hate, because it's got we've been neighbors for a long, long time. Everybody's chipping in to help place. I want to thank the Better College Point Civic Association for organizing this, along with Mr. Chen and our community. He's got the lungs for it. And Mr. Pan as well. I want to thank Mike Niebauer from the College Point Taxpayers and Civic Association. He does a really good job of recording all of the College Point events video. Thank you, Mike. And I'm going to get in trouble. Rex is doing a pretty good video also. And the Coastal Preservation Network, President Catherine Servino. They're cleaning up this park and other parks in the neighborhood all the time. Join them if you can. I know we have candidates running for office too. Former State Senator Tony Avella and Jason Nabaraj and Richard Lee. They're running to be your council member representing this area. I know we got candidates from other places too. Yeah, Dalian is here, but he's not running for College Point. And I apologize if I forgot anybody, but I think that despite the tragedies and the heartbreak and the terror, it's good that we have these kinds of events because it brings people together and it shows us a way forward. And that way forward is together. Thank you.
I just want to pick up a little bit on what Queensborough President Donovan Richards said, and he did when he's talking about our kids, because that is who we do this for. And it's up to us to teach the right thing. It's up to us not to make those stereotypical jokes at our dinner table because we think they're funny. And say, oh no, I didn't mean anything by it. Then it's up to us to let our kids see and learn the right way to behave. Speak today, and her name is Audrey Chow. She has an introduction. Chow is a junior from Townsend Harris High School. She leads her school's diverse network of action. She is a member of the student government and is on the executive board for a national youth political organization.
Go Audrey!
So, my name is Audrey, and I'm speaking to you as a 16-year-old, first-generation Chinese American. The last year of my life has been heavy with fear and grief as I'm weighed down by the violence against my community. In February, I heard an Asian woman wearing a face mask was assaulted and called diseased in a subway station. And then in July, I learned of 2 men in Brooklyn setting an 89-year-old Asian woman on fire. She looked like my grandmother. I felt terrified and angry and distressed, but mostly, I felt invisible. My life has been marked by pressures to keep my voice muted and my identity erased. And the way these incidents came and went without anything more than a week on a few Instagram stories reaffirmed what I already knew. No one was listening to us. Mulling over these stories, I began to understand that we haven't been able to speak out because we have internalized our invisibility and racism. And that is what has made our community vulnerable. Our invisibility has allowed external forces to shape our stories with stereotypes and lies, painting us as a monolith of model minorities. But when people speak up and show our collective outrage, we disrupt that. Using our voices is the best way to fight against the bigotry and violence that plagues our country. We must be able to show up as our authentic selves and speak our truth. I knew that the place to start having this conversation was where I spend most of my waking hours, school. Messaging some faculty, I began organizing a school-wide discussion to have an open, safe space for our Asian American community members and allies to grieve together, to share their frustrations, and to show that we will not be silent anymore. As I listened to my peers vent their anger and tell their stories, I was overwhelmed by the strength and resilience shown. I am lucky to be part of the most progressive and diverse generation to date, and it is vital that our voices are heard and amplified as we spearhead the change that we want to see. We must continue to empower the youth voice to speak out against injustices. There have been over 3,800 hate crimes against Asians in the U.S. in the last year alone, and those are only the reported ones. Though Trump's hateful rhetoric and the spread of terms like Chinese virus and Kung Flu have fueled this violence and prejudice, it is not anything new. It simply added fuel to a growing fire. White supremacy and anti-Asian sentiment have been ingrained into the foundation of our country, and we must address it as such to call for authentic racial justice. However, it is impossible to address and challenge systemic racism without discussing the role of misogyny, xenophobia, and imperialism. Asian American women are 2.3 times more likely to be harassed than their male counterparts and made up 68% of the reported hate crimes last year. Walking down the streets of Flushing, I was spat on by a man pulling his eyes. I exist in constant fear of worse happening to me or my mother every single day. Every hate crime has been marked by a demand to go back to China, a representation of the ever-increasing anti-immigrant sentiment. U.S. military involvement in East Asia dehumanized Asian women and emasculized Asian men. It is essential to dismantle all of these intersecting layers of oppression to liberate our community. Yet we cannot ignore that our liberation is inextricable from the liberation of all POC. True equity work does not exist in a black and white binary, and we must work towards the collective liberation of Asian Asian people, and all racially marginalized people. Using our oppression, blackness that already permeates our community will only hinder us from achieving racial justice. If we continue to contribute to the divisiveness that mainstream media and white supremacy have forced on us, then we've already lost our fight. Unity is what will ultimately catalyze change and bring us towards liberation. My parents immigrated to the United States 20 years ago. They've done nothing but work hard to provide for my brother and sister and I, to fulfill the illusion of the American dream. And I cannot be silent anymore. We need to speak out to protect our families, our parents, our elders, so we no longer have to live in fear. We are the change that we have been waiting for, and our vote will create the future that we deserve. Go on,
I don't think any of us could have put it into words better than what Audrey did just now. I'm very much Audrey. Thank you. With us today also we have some of our candidates that are running for city council. They're going to just say a few words. We look like we're fighting with the weather here, but it's really held out for us, so we are grateful. So the first one is going to come up and speak is Richard Lee. And I also want to thank him for helping us get these tents in case the rain did take over our life. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much. And Audrey, thank you for sharing those powerful words. From San Diego to Oakland, San Francisco, Austin, Philadelphia, Atlanta, in New York City with this rise in anti-Asian hate crimes and anti-Asian rhetoric, I think the Asian American community has been feeling just so many mixed emotions. From fear, like, is this going to happen to my parents? Is it going to happen to my grandparents? My brother, my sister, my kids? Anger, grief, frustration. Why aren't these crimes being charged as hate crimes? For me, personally, the emotion that I've been most feeling is actually heartbreak. We just talked about our kids. It was heartbreaking for me because growing up, I didn't really think that my kids would have to sort of go through what I did growing up. My oldest daughter, she's 8 years old. She's turning 9 in 2 months. And she's always been very precocious. And she's had like a sort of identity crisis. I'm Korean. My wife is Chinese, and so sometimes she's like, oh, I'm Chinese American. And lately, she's been saying, oh, Asian American. She's been identifying as Asian American. And about a week and a half ago, me and my wife were sitting down. This woman was on her way to an anti-Asian hate crime, and she was assaulted. And so I was telling my wife about the newsfeed, and my daughter, maybe she was exacerbated or just frustrated with the whole thing. Oh, I wish I wasn't Asian anymore. I didn't know how to react to that. I just kind of looked at my wife and we were just taken aback by what she said. And so the only thing I could think of at that point, I just turned to her and said, when mommy and daddy were growing up, this happened a lot too. But back then, it was silent and nobody really defended it. But now, we're seeing people rise up to stop it. You see, hate and racism is a virus. And it's a virus that can only be overcome when the community comes together as one to say loudly and clearly that hate really has no place in our community. And you know what? Right here, this is what community looks like. Thank you very much.
So another gentleman that some of you may know, may not know, but you should know. He's a gentleman that has supported College Point events many, many times. He's always in College Point helping us. He's a friend to College Point. Mr. Dalian.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Ms. Chen. Thank you, Michael, Dao-Yin. I never be a stranger to College Point. We have one College Point. We have one Flushing. We have one Bayside. We have one Queens. We have one New York City. We have one nation. We are Americans. We are human beings. We to be attacked. We have the rights not to be killed. They were COVID-19 survivors like us, but they lost their lives under the hate crime period. It's a definite hate crime. We are here not only to stop Asian hate crimes, we are here to stop domestic terrorism. Last but not least, I have a dream. In one day, you will not bothering call me Asian American. You will not call African American. You don't need to call Hispanic American. Of course you don't need to call European American. Because you just call me American. That's right. We are Americans. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker has been seen all over College Point Boulevard helping the most neediest members of our community. He's been out there every weekend for months, giving the people food and are having food insecurity. He has been there. No, I don't think any introduction is needed for him right now either, but Navaraj KC.
That's it.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Dan, Mr. Penn, and Mr. Chen for organizing this great event. And again, my name is Navaraj Casey. I'm also another Asian, and guess what? I'm American too. So there should be no difference than anybody else in this planet or in this country, however you call. We are one human as the United States American citizens. So there should be no racism. There should be no issues whatsoever just because of you are from somewhere else. No, that doesn't matter. So that's why we are as one human race. So that's why human race matters, just like a Black Lives Matter, just like it matters. So that's why I'm here for unity. I'm here for solidarity. Anything I have to do, or with my fellow friends as Asians, we have to be united to stop this Asian hate. So I'm here to support this hate crime and against it. So it should not be repeated anymore. They even started attacking the Uber drivers. I have seen one Nepali guy, he just got attacked a week ago, and he was like a helpless. So those crimes have been increasing dramatically. So it should stop. So let's crime. So we are united. We are not divided. Let's support as one human being. Thank you.
The College Point, and definitely not a stranger to most of you standing here. He's fought for College Point over his entire career. So the next speaker we have with us right now is Mr. Tony Avella.
You know, I'm so glad that somebody gave me this sign. Asians are Americans too. And as Audrey said, first generation, my family is only second generation. We're all immigrants, except for Native Americans. We all came here with the same desire for a good life, that our children have a good education, that we'd all have a good job, that we would all live in safety. What's happening to the Asian American community is anti-American.
Right.
This cannot go on. We cannot let it happen. And the fact that you're all here today sends a message to those who would issue hate that we're not going to stand for it. We have to work together. Whenever these incidents happen, we have to stand together. And if it takes 1,000, 10,000, and you said it best, at the dinner table, when those jokes are made against any community, that has to stop. We have to start with our children and educate them that racism, and racism does exist, has to end and has no place in the great American society. We're all in this together. And if anybody has done Ancestry.com, you all know we're all together. We're all part of the greater world community. We need to stick together. Enough. Hate has to end. Let's end it now. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tony. And we have one final speaker that is running for City Council. He is the newest friend to College Point. I've been able to call him many times if I had a question about certain things, and he's been very helpful and resourceful. So let's all welcome Austin Shafford.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the opportunity. It's amazing, it is heartening to see the diversity of the crowd here today. Everyone's standing up, everyone's speaking with one voice, saying hate will not be tolerated. Love will trump hate. In a few hours, sit down with my family for the second night of Passover Seder. Louder! And that's important to me because I was thinking back about how we have seen hate manifest itself throughout our history. And it wasn't that long ago that a wise man, much wiser, much better spoken than I am, much louder than I am too, said, when the Nazis came for the Unionists, I didn't speak out because I wasn't one of them. When the Nazis came for the Jews, I didn't speak out because I wasn't one of them. When the Nazis came for me, there was no one left to speak out. That means we are all Asian when it comes to violence. We are all Asian when it comes to hate crimes and bias. And a crime against any one of us is a crime against all of us. And it is our collective responsibility, our collective conscience to speak out and let everyone know that love trumps hate and we are all together in this. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have one final speaker today. He is also an advocate for the Asian community, and I'm sure many of you will also recognize him. He is the president of the Asian American Voters Alliance, Mr. Terrence Park.
Thank you. Good afternoon, fellow Americans and brothers and sisters. How would you feel when your brothers and sisters are constantly harassed by calling them coronavirus? How would you feel constantly harassing them and saying go back to China? How would you feel when your brothers and mothers and sisters and fathers are hit by fist and club and knocked down on the ground and constantly beating them up? How would you feel? How would you feel when your mother is confined in a room for 6 months, couldn't go out? My mother is 89 years old, pushed by somebody. God knows what's gonna happen to her. How would you feel when you feel this fear every day? Every day, how would you feel? I say this must stop. This hate must stop now. Yeah. History has taught us hatred brings division. Hatred brings down the nation. Hatred brings death. We Americans can do better than this. We all care for the spirit of America, that is, all men are created equal. We must uphold this spirit of America in solidarity and expel and cast out all kinds of hatred, all hatred against all race and all humankind. And would you join me by shouting out, stop hate Asian, when I ask you to join me shouting out, hate must stop. We must stop this hatred by saying, what do we say? Stop Asian! Stop Asian hate! What do we want? Stop Asian hate! When do we want? Now! Now! When do we want? Now! When do we want? Now! What do we want? Stop Asian hate! Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless America.
So at this moment, we're going to take a moment of silence for those victims of that horrible crime. We're going to take a moment of silence for all the people, all of our Asian brothers and sisters that have endured this racism. And we're going to stand with them right now with the moment of silence. We're going to try and light a candle. I don't know if we'll be successful.
Did it. That's the light of hope.
Thank you, Michael. So if we could all just take a moment. Thank you. So we also have some flowers here, and if anyone feels like they can make it to the water, you can feel free to take a flower, and we're going to just send them out into the water. They won't hurt the water. That's why we chose flowers. So thank you everyone for coming out, and thank you so much to all of our speakers.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
One for each. Yeah, one for each. One for each. Not many.
Let's go.
Oh, thank you so much. You saved us. Thank you.
You can save it or you can drop it in the water. Oops, wait.
要采访引导，
采访引导啊，
对啊，
有权益啊，
有主意。
你会讲中文吗？
我会讲中文。你看看这个语音。对对。
来讲两句啊。你好，刘晨义，第一直播的啊，你好，
刘晨义，好。
今天来参加这个活动，有没有想法给大家讲一下？好，谢谢。我们是
这个事情很重要，我们社区已经1年这么给别人欺负，所以我们一定要站出来，大声来反对这个 discrimination 这个 racism。谢谢你们来。
谢谢，咱们周参议员刘纯义啊先生，好，谢谢。来，引导，今天你看这个场合也来了啊，是不是？
你好，你好。
咱们这个市议员候选20选区议员引导也来到了现场啊，每个地方都能出现今天的看法啊。
对，今天
刚才我听到你说我有一个梦是吧？
对。
这是一个什么梦？给大家解释一下，好，谢谢。
这个我是今天我非常激动，能够参加大学点的那个反仇视亚裔的那个犯罪的那个游行活动。对，我在演说的最后一部分说了，我有一个梦想，这是套用马丁·路德·金的著名的演讲。我有一个梦想，我是说将来有一天，你们不会把我们细分成，你们不一定要叫我们亚裔美国人，你们也不用叫去美国人，或者说更不用叫什么叫欧洲裔的美国人，你们就叫我们美国人，因为我们都是美国人，我们在国土上面，我们有权利和平的生活，我们不应该被攻击、被杀害，所以我们在就是来阻止仇恨亚裔的犯罪，我们并且到这儿来阻止美国的国内恐怖活动。这个八个亚特兰大的8个牺牲者，他们本来应该是和我们一样，在那个疫情下的幸存者，
对，
结果一瞬间，他们被一个仇恨。我感到非常激动的是，我们有这么多从民选官员到候选人到社区领袖，都来参加大学点的反仇视亚裔的活动。谢谢你们。
好，谢谢啊，谢谢我们这个引导啊，希望好，谢谢
大家啊，谢谢。
Stay here. I'm gonna take a picture for you guys. Oh, sorry. It's okay.
来，我走，
来，安总。
杨路。
我也来一张，帮我来一张。
来，这边。
我来，我跟刘议员，好，我来一张，好。谢谢。
Is here. All right, thank you.
好，谢谢第一直播，好。
That was a beautiful rally.
谢谢。直播的，反正刘参议员，谢谢，他是参议员，周参议员。
以后我们侨联会大力支持你。
侨联会
是什么？
我是新闻宣传部的部长哈，侨联会。好，谢谢。
OK，
好，
为什么我们侨联会呢？下面的就是各同乡会的你知道，过去是侨联会。
你好。
你看这个各个族裔，各个这个团结起来多好 ！Thank you coming here.
I like the setup.
This is 观众大江某宝就是。
Where can I buy that?
And B&H.
B&H.
And
Okay. B&H.
Okay.
Thank you.
Apple is store is have. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. 咱们那个侨联会的副主席是吧？来，这个周英主席来讲两句啊。
那个这一次反仇歧视、反仇恨的那个刘春义还有英导，他们都参加了。这是一个很好的。我们都要起来。
好像区长也来了，区长，还有很多。黄河区区长也过来是吧？
我们要反歧视，反暴力，对我们亚裔的伤害，我们起来要支持民选官员，以后就是要支持我们给为我们华人发声的 站出来说话的，我们要支持他，也要出来竞选，对他们支持他们，选出我们敢为我们华人讲话的这种议员。
对，我们要团结起来，是吧？就像你昨天讲的啊，
团结就是力量，
团结各个能团结的力量。
为什么我们华裔到这个地步呢？就是我们华人对这种选举不关心，我们要站出来，勇于去投票。
对，所有的组织，所有的这个是吧？团体
都要这样做，不然的话，在美国没有我们华裔的安全感，特别是我们以后的女士啊、弱者啊，走在马路都没有安全感，所以我们要从我做起。
对，好，谢谢啊，谢谢我们美国华人华侨联合会的这个周颖副主席，谢谢，好，咱们先看看海边的这个这段风景多美啊，你看是吧？
对。
如果大家这个没有仇恨，没有这个没有歧视，没有这个的话，你看美国的这个大好的河山还是非常平静的一种美丽的，是吧？看大家就是说会后在自由的这个空间里面大家在自由的这个空气里面呼吸玩耍，是吧？自由的交谈这个就是各个族裔、各个地方的人都是在这里。这是韩裔的一位韩裔的一个候选这个议员，是吧？海边空气很好这里海边空气很好我们希望能够就是说大家团结起来一起抵抗反对这个，就是一起抗议这种仇视亚裔的行为还这个美国一个平静，还亚裔一个平静的一个世界平静的世界。因为如果歧视任何一个族裔，就会引来这个仇恨，所以说希望各个族裔互相尊重各个族裔互相尊重，互相平等互相平等的对待然后希望能够在这个美好的这个国家美利坚合众国这个一起和平的生活，是吧？就像刚才引导说的那句话我也希望有个梦，以后就是说，我说的不是说我是亚裔美国人，我是非裔美国人，我是西班牙裔美国人，而是只是说 I'm American， 我是美国人，是吧？ OK， 好，今天直播就到这里我是Live3 TV 第一直播的主播 Jack 今天我可能买了个新的一个评分架，感觉好得多谢谢大家，希望大家订阅我的频道订阅，谢谢 OK， 今天直播到这里，谢谢。